In this demo, we'll look at using the IBM DataWorks service in IBM Bluemix to move and filter data from one data service to another. In particular, we'll move data from DashDB, the data warehousing service, to Cloudant, the NoSQL database service. So let's get started by logging into Bluemix. Next, we'll need an app. And we'll just pick a simple Node.js app. Next, we'll need to add the services. For this demo, we'll need 3 services. We'll need DataWorks, we'll need the source of the data, which is DashDB, and we'll need the target database, which again is Cloudant. So let's go ahead and create these 3 services now and bind them to our app. Let's start with DashDB. We'll skip restaging for now. Now let's add Cloudant. Again, we'll skip restaging as we'll restage when we've added all 3 services. Finally, we'll add DataWorks. Now we will restage as we've added all 3 services that we need. So here we have our app running with all 3 services. Now let's take a look at the credentials for DashDB and Cloudant, because we'll need these when we connect to these databases with DataWorks. So what we'll want to do is we'll want to copy these off to a text file somewhere so we can recall them and use them when we need to connect to these databases from our DataWorks service. So these are the credentials for Cloudant. Now let's look at the credentials for DashDB. And again, I'm going to go ahead and copy these off to a text file so that I can recall the connection information when I need to connect to these database instances from DataWorks. With our credentials saved, we can now go ahead and launch DataWorks. So we click on its tile and then we click on the icon to launch the console. So the first thing we need to do is create connections to both our source database and our target database. So let's go ahead and click on Create Connections. And as we mentioned, our source database is DashDB. So we'll fill in the information here from the data that we saved, or the credentials that we saved earlier, and then we'll go ahead and create the connection. With our connection information filled in, we can go ahead and create the connection. Now let's repeat this process for our target database, which again is Cloudant. Okay, so now our data sources for both the source and the target of the data movement operation have been created. So let's go ahead and grab the data from DashDB. DashDB does come with some sample data around the fictional company called Great Outdoors. So let's go ahead and select some data from that sample data. So we've selected a product table, but instead of copying the entire table, we want to do some filtering. So let's apply a filter. In particular, let's filter on a product type code so that we only get a subset of the data. So in this case, we're only selecting the rows in the product table that have a product type code of 961. And as you can see, the number of rows actually decreased here as we've filtered out the majority of the rows in this particular table. So at this point, we need to select the destination of the data transfer or movement. So we'll select Cloudant. And then we'll give the activity a name so we can reuse it in the future as necessary. And now we can go ahead and run it. So my activity is now running. And I can double click on it to get more information. You can see right now it's still going. So I can keep refreshing until it's completed. And when the activity has completed, we'll get an indication here that it's finished. So what we need to do now is just go look in Cloudant to see if the data has actually been transferred. So we'll go back to our dashboard. And we'll launch our Cloudant console. And this is promising. You can see we have a database that's been created called Go Sales Product, which is the data from the corresponding table in DashDB. And we'll just run a query of all the documents and include all the data to make sure that it actually came over. And as we scroll down here, you can see that this looks promising. These are the fields from the corresponding rows in the product table in DashDB. And as you can see, if you look at the product type code, they're all set to 961 as we scroll through several of these. So this means that the data was actually transferred and that the filter that we applied worked as well. And that's the end of our demo. Thank you.